In this video, we're going to go over some of the basics as far as networking is concerned, some of the key things to keep in mind, and how to actually go about doing networking. Now, when you think about the steps when it comes to networking, first of all, you want to identify the targets as far as who it is that you want to network with. The key here is what organizations do you want to be looking into, which ones are you interested in, and thinking about who you might know at those organizations. So you start talking about who it is that you want to target. Companies, if you don't know a particular person there, if you do know a particular person there, then identify that name. And you start with people that you might know. So for example, you might start talking with folks about, okay, so who do you know at such and such organization? And then would you be willing to introduce me? Where you're trying to get an in to that organization. So say you wanted to learn more about, say, Cerner. Okay, and so you start asking folks you know, who do you know at Cerner? Would you be willing to make an introduction? When it comes to networking, one of the first places to start is with your family and friends. Think about also who it is that in your classes that you may want to network with. There are a lot of folks in the classes who are at various organizations that you might want to be a part of, or maybe you're interested in learning more about it. The whole idea behind networking is developing relationships. Too many times, people have a tendency to think that networking is simply, I just want a job or something along those lines. No. The key here is to start developing relationships with people in various parts of your own organization and within other organizations. So you start with people you know, asking them, who do you know in these various organizations? Would you be willing to introduce me? What you do then is send them an introduction email saying, hey, I'd like to get maybe half an hour of your time. Not looking for a job. I don't expect you to have a job. That's not what I'm asking you about. I want to learn more about you and your organization. When you ask people about themselves and about their company, they're more than willing to brag about what it is that they do and what their organization is about. And so you're asking them to get in and meet with them only for half an hour. Now, if it takes longer than that, if you have a great conversation going or something like that, go for it. When you ask them for that half an hour, make it easy on them as far as where it is that you might want to go and where you might want to meet. If you can meet in their office, that's great. If they feel like having coffee someplace at a Starbucks or something like that, then that's okay too. The main thing is to try to get on their calendar somehow, some way, and make it easy for them. You also want to make sure that you're doing your research on that organization and that person. If it's somebody that you don't know, check out their LinkedIn page, see what it is that's there. Ask your contact about what that person is about, what it is that they do, things like this. Research the organization also. So if you're interested in Cerner, research what it is that Cerner is doing. What are some of the big projects that are going on? What are some of the things that have been going on in the press that have been released? Things like this. Get as much information about that company that you possibly can, and prep your questions for that person. And you want to go from big to little. Now, when I mean big to little, big questions would be, tell me about the overall organization. What is the culture like? What are some of the key projects? Hey, I saw this particular project going on for the organization. Tell me more about that. Then you take it down to that person's maybe division or department, all the way down to the individual themselves. Well, tell me more about yourself. Well, how did you get interested in being a part of Cerner? Things like this. So you prepare your questions going from big to little. And what you're trying to do is establish and put together a conversation, not just an interrogation. You don't want to interrogate the person as far as firing questions at them. You're trying to get a conversation going, because with networking, you're developing relationships. When you're actually sitting down to meet with that person, the first thing you do is you give them a personal business card. All right. One of the things I suggest, folks, is put together and have personal business cards. You can go out to Vistaprint.com, and get all kinds of different business cards that they may have. If you look at some of these things, see, you can pick up 100 business cards, personal cards, for only $15. So for example, let's say that this is one that you're interested in. You can see it has your name and any kind of information that you might want to have on the front. And you can also have information on the back. One of the things to think about on the back of your business card, maybe have the website for your own personal web page, or maybe your LinkedIn profile, or maybe an electronic portfolio. So you can put some information on the back also. And on the front, you have your contact information. And it's really easy to get. It's one of the primary things that you can do as far as your personal branding, and then also your personal marketing. It's so easy to give them. People will hang on to them. Very simple to do. So when you're doing your networking, give them their personal business card first off. One of the other things I suggest to folks, if you're going to somebody's office, look around. See what it is that's in their office. That's going to give you an idea as far as something that is important to them and something that you might be able to make a connection on. For example, I was doing some networking one time, and I was going to a person's office, went in, and I saw that they had some pictures of Allen Fieldhouse at KU. Well, I started off with, hey, I see these pictures of Allen Fieldhouse. I'm a KU fan too. Isn't that a great place to have a basketball game? Isn't the environment just absolutely incredible? And got a great conversation going and made a personal connection just from that. You give them your 30-second commercial. This is why we talk about the 30-second commercial, or the elevator speech, and why it's so important. You start off with that. You start asking your questions and make it into a discussion as much as possible. Start building that relationship with that person. Leave time at the end to review your resume. Whenever you go in, you also want to have, like in a folder or a portfolio of some sort, a copy of your resume. And you can pull that out and go over a couple of key points that might be important for them. Then ask them for who else that they might know that would be a good person for you to talk with. And ask if they would be willing to introduce you. If you notice, you're asking someone that you know to introduce you to someone. They introduce you to someone. You start building that relationship. You ask them for someone they know that you might want to talk with. It's amazing how it actually kind of blossoms like that. At the end, send them a thank you card. I'm huge on handwritten thank yous. And the reason is because handwritten thank yous are much more personal than an email. And it's something that people have a tendency to keep for a certain length of time. And then follow up periodically. And one of the things you want to do in following up is to give something back. I'm a big believer in not just asking people for things in your networking meetings. What you're doing also is trying to give back. So it may be one of those things where you are connecting them with someone that you know. Or maybe you said, hey, I saw this article based on some of the things we were talking about. I thought you'd be interested. And you send them the article. So you always want to think about something that you can give back. Do not think of a networking meeting as a one-off thing. One of the things you want to do is periodically follow up. So maybe a month later, you follow up with someone and let them know, hey, I was thinking about you. I saw this article. I thought you might be interested. And you send it to them. Little story. There's a gentleman that I know that was in one of the previous classes there at Rockhurst. He lost his job, okay? He's an engineer, and he started networking. And he went through all of these processes and asked for folks for other networks and other connections and things like that. And he continued to follow up. About once a month, or once a week, or once every other week, he would send out a follow-up email to all of the folks that you've been networking with, saying, okay, here's some of the things I've been doing over the past couple of weeks. Here's some of the accomplishments I've had. By the way, I'm thinking about this organization here. Who do you know at that organization? It took him about 3 months and he found a new job. I got an email from him about 9 months later, and he had done everything that they were asking of him. The thing is, the company had hit on some hard times. And because he was one of the last in, he was one of the first out. And I thought, how could somebody this good be out on the street again? I mean, that's terrible. Well, I got that email from him, and I knew that he was an engineer someplace. And one day I'm out riding my bike, and I'm riding up, and I see one of my neighbors working in his yard. And I remembered he had a small engineering firm. So I pulled over, and I said, hey, Bob, I know this guy. And he said, well, I don't have any openings, but I'd be more than happy to talk with him. I said, great. Hooked him up. He did not get a job with Bob's firm, but Bob knew somebody else that connected him, and that's where he got his next job. So this is one of the importance as far as networking is concerned. Now, there are a lot of folks who are in an organization, they've been there for a while, and they're saying, hey, look, I'm not planning on leaving this company. I'm not looking for a job. I'm going through this class because it's required or because I thought I'd learned something else, this sort of thing. You better be networking within your own organization. And the reason for that is because you never know what might come up as far as opportunities are concerned. And maybe you have run into an issue with a project or something that you're working on. You know someone in another part of the organization who may be able to help you. The networking that you've done and the relationships that you've built within your organization will help you with those future projects, with those future problems that you may be running into. So these are some of the key points from networking. There are other articles that are in the readings that you should be looking over as far as some of the networking tips for introverts, rules to never break, things like this. So make sure you go over the various readings to learn more about the networking. If you have questions, give me a shout.